Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable, a quote by John F. Kennedy. This is a special episode about what's been happening around the Charlie Kirk story. We are your deep throating informants, Dr. Tara Lynn and therapist Jen, and this is the Gaslit Truth Podcast.
Before we start this episode, we're going to just throw a disclaimer out here, okay? The point of this episode is not for Terry and I to sit here and talk about our opinions on Charlie Kirk. This isn't a red or blue issue. This is not a liberal or conservative issue, okay? This is an issue more so surrounding the comments that are being made about the death of someone who is a human and some of the really gross, disgusting things that are coming from our own profession
Oh my
as
God.
therapists and mental health professionals. So we are going to talk about that today. This episode is to honor a human and not to have a ridiculous amount of judgment within
Mhm.
this.
For
So,
me, I have to
you know,
say it's also to honor freedom of speech. And
yes,
without freedom of speech, the Gaslit Truth Podcast
we wouldn't be
would
here.
fail to exist.
Yes, we
And
wouldn't be here.
so, yeah, so that's what really hit home for me with this whole Charlie Kirk thing, is freedom of speech and how one person, because he's not the only person in history that has spoke up and been eliminated by speaking up or
Mhm.
attempted to be eliminated by speaking up. And so that's what really hit me is that when we speak up, we do put ourselves in harm's way, and Jen and I have
Yes.
done that. This podcast does that for us every
Mhm.
time we release an episode. Um, I've gotten death threats. I've gotten people saying, "I want to kill you right now"
Yeah.
on social media, and I laugh it off, and I do these things, and I'm like, "Damn, maybe, maybe I shouldn't be, laughing that off as
Yeah.
much, right?"
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, so we're going to talk about some of these things surrounding Charlie's death, but the point of this is to just know that. So this is the disclaimer that's going out there, guys. This is about having some neutrality within some of this. Which let's jump into that. That's the point of what mental health professionals are supposed to be doing. And I was telling Terry before we
Mhm.
started here. I was going back and forth on whether or not we should throw this episode out there and do this. And what solidified this for me of really wanting to do that, it was about 2 hours ago. I spent time going down the TikTok rabbit hole of
Oh,
typing
man.
in the words Charlie Kirk and then a little plus sign and then therapist.
Therapists.
And I could not believe how cruel people are whose job it is in their everyday life and in their world to be neutral.
Mhm.
Now, Terry and I were talking about this because for those of you who have listened to us long enough, maybe you don't know this about us, but we were therapists in the prison system. We worked in throughout the mental health prison systems in the state that we live in here. So our job was to work with the worst misfits of society, and I'm air quoting this. Okay,
Violent criminals, heinous
absolutely
acts against other
the
people.
most psychopathic individuals, which interesting enough, Terry and I were trained in that specific population. Shocker.
Right.
Okay. That's what we worked with. The most psychopathic, antisocial, personality disordered, evil, put all of the words on it, judgment words, whatever you want, DSM words.
Mhm.
I don't fucking care on these people. This is what we did. And our job was to know their entire life story, know every little detail about the harm they've caused, as some of you may believe Charlie has caused, right? And to be able to sit with them and be neutral
Mhm.
without
Now, I do
judgment.
wanna say, I don't believe Charlie Kirk has ever acted in violence towards someone. That's the difference, is words versus violent acts here. You are not gonna get thrown in prison because you said a word.
No, right.
You're
That's
you're
why
you're
he
not going
wasn't
to.
thrown in prison,
That's why
right?
he
The
wasn't thrown
people,
in prison.
yes,
Right.
yes,
Exactly.
yes. So the
So,
people took
but
lives,
the
harmed
one
lives.
thing, yeah, the one thing that Jen and I were, maybe to our detriment, trained to do
Oh, yeah,
was, put the inmates as people first all the time. Humanity comes first.
always.
And even sometimes that went against, ethical beliefs of my own,
Correct.
okay? So when I remember one time we were talking about trauma treatment, and when the trauma that you're treating the person for
Is the
is the
crime.
actual crime, the violent
Yeah.
act that created trauma for the perpetrator.
Yes.
Like, wrap your mind around that, and we had to do that.
Yes.
And so that meant we had to sit in the space of non-judgment all the time.
Yep.
So when I see these therapists, and I'm gonna generalize, they seem
Yeah.
kinda
There's
young, most of them seem relatively youthful. I think you have never really practiced in an environment that you have to be non-judgmental in, that
Mhm.
you have to sit in neutrality,
Yeah.
like we did, and maybe all therapists need to do that, you know?
Throw
Because
it to
that
the
is
fire.
I talk about
Yeah.
Jen in our training as being
It was
extreme,
so extreme.
but
Yeah.
it was I talk about it in terms of being extreme in the mental health space, but it was actually really extreme in the learning how to be
Yes.
neutral space,
So
right?
here you are, right? Trying to, you're on social media looking at this, okay? For me this morning it was TikTok, yesterday was YouTube, okay? And
Mhm,
going through all of this, and I the inability for a mental health professional to sit in a neutral space, to view a human life as a human life, okay?
mhm.
And some people are gonna argue this and go into, "Well, now we're going into morality and your brain." Okay, fine.
Fine.
Okay, fine. All right.
Mhm,
Charlie Kirk put a lot of videos out there about argumentation around morality.
mhm,
And he would talk about comparing abortion to Auschwitz and loss of life. And what he would neutralize this into truly was life,
mhm,
truly a human life. And
mhm.
I think that the inability for people who are supposed, I mean, we are the trained professionals in this, right? Like, talk about the most ridiculous amounts of training in one area really truly goes into ethics and into, guess what? If you have an opinion, it doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
You check that shit at the door.
Right.
You
When you're
check it
operating as a
as a
therapist, right?
therapist.
Right.
Correct.
And I'm gonna make the argument that if you're on social media and you've got your credentials next to your name, you've got
Yes.
therapist in front of your name or
Yeah.
counselor behind your name or social worker somewhere, you are operating as a therapist or a social worker. You can't now suddenly say, I'm not. This is my personal social media. It's not your personal social media when you've got your credentials attached to it. So in those spaces, you are operating in this space that's supposed to be neutral, and they do that with politics too. The
Mhm.
whole argument about therapy is political. Well, yes, I mean, on some levels it is. The DSM is fucking political. Diagnosing is political.
It's all
But it's
political.
when we say that, it's not about the political party you choose. And that has been conflated into that you must only vote on certain political lines or you're operating as an unethical therapist. I just did a whole video on this on because I felt like the time was right because that is completely actually that's unethical when you coerce or push someone into a political party as and when you're operating as a therapist or social worker, that is actually unethical practice. So
Mhm.
you are supposed to remain neutral in the therapy room, right?
Right.
Like in the context of being a therapist. It's clear the ACA and the APA say those things. So this is so fascinating to me that so many I'm going to call some of them self-professed therapists. I don't know if they really are or not. Who knows, right?
Oh, people
Are
ask me all the time, "What's your credentials?" I go, "I don't go look it up."
right. Exactly. Exactly.
I don't
But
know,
when
I
they're
don't have the answer to you, but yes,
but
like,
when
some of
they're
them may not
doing
be.
right, when
Who
they
the hell
are
cares? Like, I don't
who
I don't know.
cares? Who
It's
cares?
so
I
dumb.
would I would hope that therapists are on there celebrating freedom of speech, like celebrating
Mhm.
that idea that somebody can come forth and say what they're saying in a nonviolent way. He
Right.
never incited violence. He never did. If your interpretation was to meet him with violence, that's
Mhm.
on you. He did not incite violence in any way. Your thoughts and beliefs don't incite violence, right?
That's a great distinction. I think that is a
yeah.
very significant distinction because even when you Wikipedia Charlie Kirk, there's a couple words in there, the way it's written, and that might change now because, of course, there's a little disclaimer there that they're
Sure.
continuing to edit it. So, but there's a couple words in there that lead you to believe that violence was incited and
It wasn't.
enticed. And actually, though, it's a very slippery slope with semantics here, and I think that that leads to opinion, that leads to judgment. That okay, so what is so difficult about viewing a human life as a human life and bringing neutrality into this? And especially from someone who's a mental health professional.
I don't know. Why is
What
that
is what
difficult?
is this? What is this? Like, have you and I don't want people to believe that you need to lose yourself and use your beliefs within the context of your career, because you don't, okay?
Right.
How I operate right here on the Gaslit Truth podcast, I'm gonna operate a little different in the therapy room because there's a ton of opinion that comes out here, and any of my clients know that it's painstaking to do psychotherapy with me because they ask me, "What's your opinion?" I look at them and I go, "Well, what's your opinion?" And I do the whole
Right.
answer the question with the
Yeah.
question because my truth is not your truth, and I'm not gonna
It
bring my
doesn't have
judgment.
to be.
No, it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think that there's it's like, what is so difficult about this? What is it that strikes people who are supposedly experts in the ability to remain in a neutral space? What strikes you to be, I will use the word cruel, in your comments and in your videos that you put out when a loss of life happened with someone who clearly you probably don't agree with some of their opinions?
Well, what strikes you to to tell other people that they're unethical if they believe that person or if they support that person? What strikes you to do that? You shouldn't be
Right.
doing that either. Because I think about things like religion. You
Mhm.
know, do you know how many
Huge platform Charlie stood on.
Oh, yes, that would
Okay.
and yes, but I think about Jen and I too in working in the prison. How many religions were there?
Oh. Mm. There were 16 religious diets, so there was
Right.
probably at least
What
100
was what
religions.
was the weirdest religion or the most, I don't know, controversial religion that you came across? Do you recall?
Probably the Wiccans,
Right. Mhm.
and they weren't allowed to practice. Like, it's not like we can have a sweat lodge, but the Wiccans couldn't go and I don't know the verbiage, can't, not an expert
Right.
and can't remember, couldn't go and do fill in the blank. But probably that for me at least
Mhm. For
what
you
I dealt
personally,
with. Mhm.
right? Maybe
Yeah.
not if you were, of that religious belief, right? So the idea that even let's say you're a staunch Catholic and you come across somebody that practices that religious belief in the prison or in your own practice, are you allowed to be like, "You're wrong"?
Mhm. Right.
Y unless you say in your bio and all this stuff that I am a Catholic and my beliefs are of Catholicism or whatever it is,
Mhm.
unless you identify yourself that up front so people know, or I vote on this party line or that party line. If you wanna make that part of your therapeutic intervention, I think? I don't know. I think we're conflating, like, my personal beliefs are now part of a therapeutic intervention. Like,
Right.
to me, it's weird. Like, why does that even matter in
Mhm.
the therapy room? It shouldn't matter,
Well, and
right?
I also think something that Charlie did very well is that he was very transparent and very honest. Like,
Yes.
I don't think this man stood on a platform of things that he didn't,
Wishy-washy.
yeah, of things he didn't believe in.
Right.
And
Which also I have to say, though, I wanna intervene here for a second because that would make it really difficult if he ever did change his mind, by the way.
right. And he'd
Yeah.
have to explain. He'd have to
Yeah.
explain it. He'd have to justify it. And I just I think that he was very passionate about what he stood for, and it wasn't lies to him. It wasn't a bunch
Right.
of bullshit coming out of his mouth. And so I also think about that when it comes to something else that we are taught as therapists, which is how important it is for certain things. Like, we need to be transparent if we know that we can't hold ourselves in a neutral space. If
Right.
you can't do that, right, then you need to be honest about that. That's actually a conversation. This which goes back to the ethics
Honest to
that we
yourself
did.
and your clinical
Right.
supervisor, not to the
You don't
client.
you don't take clients on that you can't be neutral with. Okay.
Right.
I got to a point in my career where when I was in the women's system, one of the harder spaces I had was working with some of the clients whose women exploited their own children. They would
Yeah.
traffic there and sell their own children. They would exploit their children in ways that I had a really hard time with.
Mhm.
And so that was a level of transparency I could have with especially a couple times with those inmates. When I would see them, I would tell them, I'm not going to be the clinician for you. I'm
Mhm.
having a hard time with this, and I will tell you that. And they'd get reassigned. It's no different in private practice. We take on clients, and if there is a limitation and we can't hold ourselves to it and we cannot be neutral, you step away. There's a level of transparent honesty that you have to have. Okay.
Mhm.
Charlie brought that. He could bring that. He was not standing up there bullshitting himself.
No. Or bullshitting other people. You knew
Or other
exactly
right.
where he stood.
Yep.
And he was only 31 years old, and by the way, I just have to roll back time. He started when he was 19,
Mhm.
doing this at 19
Yeah,
years old.
yeah.
We sit here behind a camera with a microphone. We don't sit in front of thousands of people sharing our truth or our version of the truth and debating people on it. We really don't. As a matter of fact, when we bring in people, there's really not much debate there,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm probably not a great debater. The dude was a great debater. Like he could debate and think critically, and I think in that debate he was helping other people to think critically as well.
Yes.
And that was the thing that I do admire the most with his presentation. It wasn't about his message, it was about how he gave his message, right?
Mhm.
You don't have to agree with him to take a step back and go, he knew how to debate and he knew how to talk and he knew how to think critically and he knew how to get other people to think. The problem is the other people, when they were thinking, they would get so mad that they couldn't articulate a response back.
Well,
Not
yeah,
all
because
people, not all
their
of
whole
them.
their whole, like, limbic system went nuts, the prefrontal
But
cortex shut down, they went into fight or flight, and higher order thinking went to shit, and you were
right.
like and he would say that, and that was such a beautiful thing that he could do. The beauty of what he could do is what I think we try to channel on this show, is because there's people that listen to this that do not agree,
Right.
or it's like, give us the opportunity to listen because we're
Mm.
going to bring a side to this, whether it's based in science, whether it's subjective, everything in between, to
Mhm.
get you to pause for a hot second, to put you in fight or flight, to shut your fucking prefrontal cortex down that's
Yeah.
probably been damaged by psych meds anyways,
Right.
like mine is, and you
Yeah.
stop and you go, wait a minute, what if that's true? What if
Mhm.
eugenics is real? What if, like, just for a hot
Yeah.
second? And that's what he had the ability to do. And I think that that's really important because it pauses people long enough to let your like to slow down, once your brain starts working again, to get your critical thinking back and go, okay, wait a
Mhm.
minute, this isn't maybe so much a red or a blue issue, or so much of which party you affiliate with, or if you are a Christian or an atheist, if you are a
Mhm.
liberal or a conservative. You just said something that's intriguing that maybe I need to pause and think about. That's what we do here.
Mhm.
It's exactly what we do here on this show.
Well, and the reason we do it in part is because our clients and listeners and even ourselves have been shut down so many times in a doctor's office, in a therapy office with just singular thinking, right? And so people, you're dangerous. Your words are dangerous. Not having these words is dangerous, which is how we got here. People weren't getting the right words. They weren't given informed consent. And so they were just accepting things as the full truth because there was never another side presented. And to me, that's the most dangerous part. It's
Yeah.
not sharing what I call alternative truth, but it's not alternative, it's just a truth that you don't know. It's a truth that you don't know, you don't understand, you've not lived it. But we can't shut that stuff down because this is how we are in the crisis that we're in now with mental health care, because clinicians have shut down alternatives. They've shut down other sides. They've shut down informed consent. It doesn't matter in lieu of manipulation. in lieu of coercion, right? When you fucking tell somebody that taking a psych med is just like a type 1 diabetic taking insulin, you are lying. You're coercing. You're not giving informed consent. This is what this is about, is sharing actual truth, the truth that I see, right? And
Yeah.
my truth is important. It doesn't have to be the truth. It is just a truth. It's truth for me and it's truth for many others. And I feel like that's what Charlie Kirk was doing. He was sharing his truth. He was not inciting violence. People met him with violence because of that whole limbic system thing, right? Like
Mhm.
when you are so dysregulated, this happens to me too. Instead of people debating me, I'll be like, open debate on my stuff. Like, let's hear it. Let's hash
Mhm.
it out in the comments. I'll say, hash it out in the comments. You're a stupid fucker. Blah, blah, blah. That's not what I mean. You need to die. That's not what I'm
Yeah,
talking
no.
about.
No.
Like, give me something else. And the
Yes.
problem is that they can't. That's the thing. They can't give me something else. And I think that's because critical thinking is a lost art. And Charlie Kirk was one to try to bring that back. And I think he did it pretty well, to be honest. Like his message or not, the message really is, let's start critically thinking again, folks, and let's start exercising our right to freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And so in his death, that's what I want to take from this, is that it kind of gives me a little bit more power to be like, all right, we just got to keep talking
Yeah.
until you're sick of us, and keep listening until you're sick of us. But if you want to debate us, bring the debate. Don't bring the insults and don't bring the violence. Bring the debate,
Mhm. Right.
right?
Can you do it without judgment? Can you do
Yeah.
it without using things that are just non-factual, right? Like, an opinion, sheer opinion, right?
Disparaging us, like, just,
Despair
what are your credentials? How do you know? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I could be an MD, a PhD, an LPC, an MS, a BA, and it still wouldn't be enough for you. So instead of disparaging the person, how about you listen to the message and ask a question or tell your belief or your side? But I feel like you don't have a side when you can't articulate it without disparaging the messenger. So if you want a side, then create a side, but don't your side is not a side of disparagement. So anyway, that's it.
I think that's it. And
Yeah.
from, both of us to not only the family of Charlie and the friends of him, but to everyone that saw this
Oh my
tragedy
God.
occur, um, just a
I see.
heartfelt
Yes.
extension of our
And
arms, our heart.
yes.
Uh,
And please, I've been seeing people who were at the event who witnessed what happened firsthand, and they're sobbing and they're crying. If that is you or someone that was there, please get trauma treatment ASAP. This does not need to stick with you for a lifetime. So take care of yourself if you witnessed that act. Even witnessed it on social media. It was horrific. I
yes.
saw the video and I had to stop. So yes. So please take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and use your freedom of speech for good.
Yeah.